Hi, this is Doron Kornbluth from Mosaic Press, and my guest today is the important author of this gorgeous book. Can you see it on the screen, the title? It's just really nice the way it came out, right? It's called From Behind the Curtain, Ma'achorei Pargot, a Chassidic Guide to Finding Hashem by Rabbi Akiva Bruck. Pleasure to meet finally. We've been in phone contact, email contact, and some other methods, and I don't think we've ever actually met. So it's nice to finally put a
nice to meet you.
I'm a big fan of your book. I love it.
Thank you.
So listen, I think what the format of your book is actually, tell me if you agree with me, but the format of your book is actually not what the book is. In other words, it looks like if you open it up in a table of contents, you have it sort of organized according to the parsha, and people could mistakenly think that it's like a parsha commentary. But we actually, on purpose, did not emphasize that on the cover because it's really not about the parsha. It's much more sort of using the parsha or sticking with as an introduction to Hasidic philosophy. Do you think that's a way of summarizing it?
Yeah, correct.
Now, why this? In other words, what do you think? There's obviously a big demand amongst non-Hasidim for Hasidic thought today. You see it everywhere in Lithuanian yeshivas that 200 years ago there was a big battle, and they're learning Nesiva Shalom, and you see it in YU or Weinberger was there for you. I'm like, you see that this. What do you think prompts that? Any thoughts?
I think that over the last few years, this sort of uprising that we've been seeing of interest in the writings of the tzaddikim largely comes from the fact that a lot of people, whether they grew up in more Lithuanian yeshivos or more modern schools, there's sort of a missing element in their avodas Hashem and their Yiddishkeit and their experience of Judaism, in that a lot of times they're sort of taught what to do and how to do it, and the importance of doing things, but oftentimes the why aspect. Why am I doing it? What is it supposed to mean to me? Especially nowadays when there's so much being thrown at us from the outside world. There's so much going on, and people get lost in the hustle and bustle of their daily lives. It's important to have something that will pull them in to Judaism. And I think a lot of these teachings, as much as they were written 200-300 years ago, a lot of people find very strong relevance into their lives now in terms of showing them the why we're doing things, why we're putting on tefillin, why are we davening, what does it mean to daven, what does it mean to wear a pair of tzitzis, what does it mean to give tzedakah, and I think that sort of interest or that need that's very essential to the Jewish soul is becoming much more expressed now as we're in these last generations preceding the Mashiach.
Beautiful. It's a good explanation. I'm sort of a typical example of this, where I'm a Litvak, and I don't have any Hasidic background that I know of. And on the other hand, I daven pretty regularly at the Nates Minyan, the Breslov Minyan on my street, and I love it. And I'm very close to Chabad. I work with Chabad. I learn Chabad teachings. The picture of the Rebbe is on my wall, along with, by the way, I'm probably the only people, I've got the Rebbe Vadia Yosef, I've got the Stipler. So I see that it's sort of like all blending, and people are getting that inspiration. What's interesting, I find also, and I'm just curious as to what you think about this, is that sometimes today people think that you're like one Hasidic group. In other words, you identify as X. And that is true, and that's beautiful, and follow your Rebbe and everything. But a huge percentage of the people you quote and the people you learn from in the From Behind the Curtain, there are people that learn from all over. They would go and learn by one Rebbe for a couple of years and another Rebbe for. It wasn't as defined as it is now. Do you have any thoughts on why that happened?
Meaning why it happened within this book specifically, or in general?
No, just in general. Yeah.
I think that if you go through any one sefer from any given Hasidic master, you'll find that each one sort of has their own concept, their own aspect of avodas Hashem that they're very focused on. Some might say that Rabbi Nachman is focused on simcha or hisbodedus. The Morei Naim is very focused on the concept of the das. The Kedushas Levi is very focused on Ahavas Yisrael. Every tzaddik has their own sort of aspect, and I think that each and every Jew has within themselves their own sort of proclivity towards a certain aspect of avodas Hashem. And I think that for some people to follow a certain tzaddik or a certain tzaddik's teachings just reflects a more inner understanding that they're naturally drawn towards, a certain concept, a certain aspect, a certain form of teaching, which is why I specifically wanted to bring, a whole array of teachings from different tzaddikim that would hopefully speak to, a larger number of people, wherever they are, or whatever, inner stirrings they have towards specific teachings or things like that.
Beautiful. We only have a minute or two left, because I'm told that we need to keep these short. Maybe we'll speak again with your permission sometime in the future. It will be a pleasure. But maybe you can just sort of share, a final thought that as much as we are all individual, and as much as everybody has their own emphasis, which I think is a great explanation, and it rings true. Is there any one thought that inspires you? One idea, the Akiva Bruck Rebbe, what's your point of emphasis? What's your, is there today, even today in Corona times, in this crazy world we're living in, is there something that connects you, that you think about a lot and helps you in your avodas Hashem?
Yeah, I mean, my wife and I moved back from Eretz Yisrael 2 years ago, which was very difficult for me. And I hope to be able to go back very soon. And I think that for me personally, I work, I obviously learn. If people ask me what I do for a living, I say I learn and I daven. That's what a Jew does. Could be that I work for 10 hours a day, but I learn and I daven. That's what a Jew does. And I think that one of the most important points in my life that I've sort of taken from what I have learned from the tzaddikim is that regardless of what you do, regardless of what your job is or where you find yourself, obviously not everyone's meant to sit and learn all day, and people are meant to work and go out or teach or whatever it is, but recognizing the infinite importance of what you are doing. If your job is to be working, then your job is just as important as someone who's learning all day. It could be that he's engaged in something which seems to be much holier and learning towards very holy, but everything that we do in life is an experience. It's an opportunity to draw closer to Hashem. And specifically, it's much greater to find Hashem when you're working or you're out than it is to find Hashem in a base medrash where it's readily apparent that Hashem is here. It's much more of a chiddush. It's much more of a novel thing to find Hashem when I'm at the office, or I'm going to work, or I'm commuting, and I could pull out a sefer or pull out my phone and listen to a shir. I think the ability to recognize that within everything that I do, I have the opportunity to draw myself closer to Hashem, to recognize that if I'm washing dishes or taking out the trash or going to work, that these are opportunities to serve Hashem, even though they may seem trivial. I think that's one of the most important fundamentals, especially nowadays, when we aren't all learning all day, to recognize, to understand, and make a greater part of our lives.
Absolutely beautiful. Nothing I can add to that beautiful sentiment and idea. The Sefer, more than a book, the Sefer is from behind the curtain. It's basically an introduction to Chassidic thought. Very beautifully done, and for those of us who do not grow up with a Chassidic education, and beautiful Sefer, highly recommended. Thank you for your time. Everything you and family should be safe and healthy.
Amen. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.